Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. Before starting the video, please go ahead and hit the subscribe button and give this video a like up. Finally, it appears that the young and the restless has realized that it is, let's be generous and say, not in optimal shape. The return of former executive producer Edward J. Scott as supervising producer is a definite step in the right direction. So what's next? Aside from immediately shifting the focus of the show back from who's CEO this week, and what's the mental illness du jour, to romance and family drama, some cuts are due. The canvas is overcrowded with characters who are played too little to be counted as having actual storylines. The solution? As painful as it will be, drop a family. Victor and Jack have been at each other's throats for decades. For them to still be going at it after all these years renders them static, unable to grow or change or play anything. But the same, I'm and get you. Just you wait. Plot over and over again. While we may love the characters, does any viewer really care who comes out on top in their endless feud? No, because we have been trained to know that there are no stakes. Win or lose, Victor and Jack will still be richer than the rest of us combined. So would we send the Newmans or the Abbotts packing? Not all of them, perhaps, but some. Especially if it saves us from retreads of stories that no one really wants retold. Chatham 2.0? Pass. Billy and Kyle competing to see which of them can be more obnoxious. No, thanks. Nick pretending there are no women in Geno City besides his ex-wives? You can do better. Young and restless. What about the Wintresses? Do they even count anymore as a family since all we have left of Neil and Drusilla's legacy is adoptive siblings Devin and Lily and cousin Nate? Maybe is on so infrequently, and her machinations are so confounding. We're gonna leave her out of this. The Fenmore Baldwins are down to just Michael and Lauren, who are used as nothing more than supporting players in other characters' storylines. Maria and Tessa, too, are primarily talk-tos. They don't make anything happen. They just discuss things that have happened to front-burner characters. We get that Young and Restless might be afraid to swing the axe for fear of alienating any viewer. But if it isn't really going to use certain characters, it should lose them, thereby freeing up the space to bring in an impactful new family the way co-creator Bill Bell did when he replaced the Brookses and Fosters with the Newmans and Abbotts. And for heaven's sake, can we please make the new family one that has to actually think about its bills and work for a living? People to whom we can actually relate and who don't wake up, go to bed, and do everything in between in a business suit. Please and thank you. In the quaint town of Crestwood, where the streets were lined with cherry blossom trees, and the air was thick with the sweet scent of nostalgia, two families stood out like oil and water, the Abbotts and the Newmans. On the surface, both families were respected pillars of the community. Yet beneath the veneer of charm and civility lay a simmering tension that had been festering for generations. The Abbotts, known for their flourishing apple orchard, were traditionalists who valued hard work and community service. Harold Abbott, the patriarch, was the town's mayor, a position he wore like a badge of honor. His wife, Agnes, was a tireless volunteer, organizing charity events and bake sales with the precision of a military operation. Their children, Emily and Jake, were the pride of Crestwood High, excelling academically and athletically. In stark contrast, the Newmans were the town's enigmatic outsiders. They owned a sprawling vineyard on the outskirts of Crestwood and were known for their eccentric lifestyle. Charles Newman, the head of the family, was an artist with an unpredictable temperament, often retreating to his studio for weeks on end. His wife, Leela, was a free spirit, hosting eclectic gatherings that often left the more conservative residents of Crestwood feeling uncomfortable. Their son, Max, was a rebellious teenager, often seen with a skateboard and a nonchalant attitude that irked the Abbotts to no end. The families had a long history of conflict, rooted in a land dispute decades prior. The Abbotts believed the Newmans had encroached on their territory, while the Newmans accused the Abbotts of being elitist and unwilling to adapt to changing times. The rivalry escalated when the annual Harvest Festival approached, a time that brought the community together but also highlighted the divisions between these two families. As the festival drew near, the tension reached a breaking point. Harold Abbott called for a town meeting to discuss the upcoming event, hoping to emphasize the importance of unity. However, when the Newmans entered the town hall, whispers filled the room, and the atmosphere turned electric. The Abbotts were determined to keep the festival traditional, while the Newmans pushed for a more modern approach, incorporating their unique flair into the festivities. Crestwood deserves to evolve, Max proclaimed passionately, his voice resonating through the hall. We can celebrate our roots while also embracing new ideas. Harold, red-faced with anger, countered, we need to preserve our values and traditions. The Harvest Festival is not just an event, it's a legacy. The argument escalated, voices rising and tempers flaring. Eventually, the mayor slammed his fist on the table, calling for order. One family needs to be cut from this festival. It's either the Abbotts or the Newmans. The room fell silent, the weight of his words hanging in the air. Everyone knew what this meant. The festival was a defining moment for Crestwood, and the decision would ripple through the community for years to come. Days passed, and the tension in Crestwood grew thicker. Emily Abbott and Max Newman, despite their families' disdain for each other, had always shared a secret friendship. They met in the shadows of the cherry blossoms, where their laughter echoed like whispers of a forgotten era. They talked about dreams, hopes, and the weight of their family names. Why does it have to be this way? Emily asked one evening, her brow furrowed with concern. Can't we find a way to bring both families together? Max shrugged, his skateboard resting against his leg. It's hard when our parents are so set in their ways. They see each other as enemies, not as neighbors. But Emily was determined. We can change that. Let's come up with a plan to merge our ideas for the festival. With that spark of inspiration, the two devised a bold scheme to create a festival that highlighted both families' contributions. They spent countless nights brainstorming, melding traditional Abbott activities, like apple picking and pie eating contests, with Newman flair, such as art installations and live music performances. Finally, the day of the Harvest Festival arrived. The townspeople were abuzz with anticipation, yet the air was thick with unease. As the festival commenced, the sight of families enjoying the blended activities brought a wave of hope. Yet, lurking in the shadows were Harold and Charles, each man stewing in resentment as they watched their children work together. As the sun dipped low in the sky, the festival reached its zenith. Leila Newman took to the stage, her vibrant dress flowing like a river of color. She introduced a collaborative performance, featuring the Abbott children and local artists. For a moment, the crowd was entranced, caught in the magic of creativity that transcended their families' differences. But the enchantment was short-lived. The moment ended abruptly when Harold stood up, his face a mask of fury. This is not how we do things in Crestwood. You're ruining the festival. Ruining? No, Dad. We're redefining it. Emily shouted back, her voice steady. It's about coming together, not tearing each other apart. As the crowd gasped, Charles stepped forward. We need to let go of this feud. Our families have been at odds for too long. Let's focus on what brings us together, not what divides us. The words hung in the air, and for the first time, Harold paused. He looked around at the faces of the townspeople, friends, neighbors, and even rivals who had come together for this moment. In that instant, the walls between the two families began to crack. Slowly, Harold took a step back. Perhaps we've been too rigid. Maybe we need to embrace change. The crowd erupted in applause, a wave of relief washing over the festival. Max grinned at Emily, their eyes shining with the possibility of a new beginning. From that day on, Crestwood was forever changed. The Abbotts and the Newmans, once bitter rivals, became allies in a shared mission to unite the community. The Harvest Festival evolved into a celebration of collaboration, creativity, and the strength of diversity, proving that even the deepest divisions could be bridged with understanding and love. In the end, it wasn't one family that needed to be cut, it was the animosity that kept them apart. And with that, Crestwood blossomed into a place where differences were celebrated and unity flourished, just like the cherry blossoms that lined its streets.